And during this period, late prehistoric period, there were three different culture areas in West Virginia. In the northern part of the state, in the northern panhandle and adjoining parts of Ohio and Pennsylvania, the Monongahela people lived. And these were a different cultural group than the Fort Ancient people. And in the eastern part of the state, in the eastern panhandle and adjoining parts of the other states, the Susquehannock lived. And then in the south, and you can see where the Fort Ancient people lived. Oh, that's not working. So that's basically the territory. And this is a map showing the extent of Fort Ancient villages, and these are just some of the villages, but they reached from Indiana in the west through the Ohio Valley to West Virginia in the east. West Virginia is the easternmost point where the Fort Ancient people lived. And again, you can see some of the Fort Ancient villages in the southern part of the state, quite a few. I talk about 16 different sites in the book. This is one of the sites we'll talk a little bit about. Burning Spring Branch was occupied around AD 1500. Back between 1995 and 2002, I believe, Culture Resource Analysts were doing excavation for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for the Marmot Lock Replacement Project. And they dug into a garden that was there and found a Fort Ancient village underneath that no one knew was there. And it's a semicircular village bounded on one side by the Kanawha River and the other side by Burning Spring Branch. There were roughly 24 houses in the village, kind of in a semicircle. And this is an artist's rendition. It was built on a bluff overlooking the river. And this is after they scraped the surface, and you can see the different post molds, the dots that show where the posts were for the houses. There's a smaller one. And then this is probably one of the palisade walls. And one of the unusual things about Burning Spring Branch was the pottery. We discovered that it had a different kind of pottery from a lot of the Fort Ancient villages. It had corncob impressing on the pottery, and this was made by using a corn cob with kernels off, dried, and rubbing it vertically up and down on the clay before it was fired. And it took a while to kind of determine what it was because it looked like a little bit like fabric impressed. But making replicas, we found out that it was actually corncob impressing. And this is a trait. Some of the villages, it's found at some villages in Virginia where Siouan people live, Siouan-speaking people, the Tudlo and Saponi in particular. So this was interesting. It kind of shows some sort of interaction between Native groups in Virginia and in West Virginia. And this is some of the corncob impressed in from Virginia. This is a small pottery jar that was found there. Could have been a paint pot or something made for one of the children. And there were clay pipes found, and Native American pipes at this period were usually either clay or stone. They used a lot of different types of stone. They used limestone, sandstone, steatite, several different stones, but smoking pipes were unusual because unlike a lot of the pottery and other different artifacts that have a certain form they went by, they were pretty much anything goes. It was up to the artist to decide what form it would take, and a lot of them were animal effigy pipes. And this was a similar pipe from man in Logan County. There were deer bone beads found, and these are pretty common common on Fort Ancient sites. They're made from deer leg bone and cut in ground and usually strung, and sometimes they would make skirts out of these. They had so many deer bone beads, they'd make skirts. Different bone tools, needle awl. This was the common artifact found on Fort Ancient sites as well. They're called discs or discoidals, and we think they might be gaming pieces because they're similar, although much smaller, to chunky stones. Chunky was a game played by native people in historic times. And these come in different, they're all round, but they're made of clay or stone. Some have holes in the center, some are marked with an X or another figure, and you find these a lot. Another site we'll talk about is a buffalo site, which is south of the town of Buffalo in Putnam County on the Kanawha River. And this is an aerial photo, and you can see the light coloration. That's where the midden was of the village. This was the downstream village. There were two overlapping villages, and this is the upstream village. The downstream village was the one that was excavated more. It was excavated in the early 1960s by Edward McMichael, who was with the Geological Survey.